The trauma bay ran on hierarchy, not instinct. At the top were the senior physicians, confident voices, clipped commands, years of authority stitched into their coats. Beneath them, residents moved fast, eager and loud. And at the bottom stood Emily Hart, RN, new badge, still stiff against her scrubs. She took her position near the monitor, hands steady, eyes sharp. "Blood pressure's holding for now," a resident said. "Good," the attending replied. "Let's keep moving." Emily leaned closer to the gurney. Commander Michael Hayes lay rigid, jaw tight, breath shallow, but controlled. Too controlled. She checked his pupils, reactive, focused. This man wasn't drifting. He was fighting something quietly. Emily spoke, calm but clear. "Doctor, his breathing pattern doesn't match his oxygen saturation." The attending didn't turn. "He's in shock. That's normal." Emily hesitated, then continued. "Sir, I don't think this is respiratory failure. I think he's compensating." A pause, then a dismissive sigh. "Nurse Hart," the doctor said, finally looking at her. "Let us do our jobs." A resident smirked. "She's just nervous. New people always overthink." Emily stepped back, heat crawling up her neck. She'd learned long ago when to argue, and when arguing would get someone killed faster. The monitor beeped again. Michael's heart rate spiked, then steadied. His hand twitched, not random, intentional. Emily moved closer and spoke softly, just for him. "Commander, squeeze my hand if you can." "Hear me!" His fingers tightened once, firm. Her breath caught. She turned back to the team. "He's conscious." "He's responding." "Barely," the attending replied. "Prep for intubation." Emily shook her head. "If we intubate now, we could—" "Enough," the doctor snapped. "You're crossing a line." The room went quiet. Michael's breathing changed. Slower now, strained. The monitor dipped. "Oxygen's dropping," a resident said. "See?" the attending replied. "That's why we don't hesitate." Emily stared at the screen. Something wasn't adding up. The numbers said one thing. The man said another. She saw it then, a subtle shift in his chest. Not collapse, restriction, internal pressure. Emily opened her mouth. "Doctor, I think this is—" "Step away from the bed," the attending ordered. Emily obeyed. But as she stepped back, the monitor gave a sharp warning tone. And Emily realized with cold certainty they were about to make a fatal mistake. The mood in the trauma bay shifted the moment the military arrived. 2 uniformed MPs took position outside the doors, faces blank, eyes alert. Behind them stood a Navy colonel, hands clasped behind his back, watching every movement inside the room like a hawk tracking prey. No one joked anymore. "Who's the patient?" a resident whispered. The answer came from the dog tags now clipped to the chart. "Commander Michael Hayes, DevGru." A low murmur rippled through the team. "Well," the attending said, straightening his coat, "let's make sure we don't mess this up." Emily felt the irony burn. They were already doing exactly that. Michael's eyes fluttered open again. Sweat beaded along his temple. His breathing grew, shallow, measured in tight intervals, like he was counting each breath instead of taking it. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Commander Hayes, can you hear me?" His gaze locked onto hers instantly. Not confusion, recognition. He swallowed hard. "Pressure, not air," he murmured. The words were faint, nearly lost beneath the hum of machines. A resident glanced over. Did he say something? "Probably delirium," the attending replied without looking. "He's hypoxic." Emily felt her pulse quicken. "Pressure, not air," she repeated softly. Michael's fingers curled weakly around the edge of the gurney. "They'll drown me," he whispered, "if you let them." Emily's breath caught. This wasn't fear, it was warning. She turned to the team. "Doctor, he's describing a pressure-based restriction, not oxygen. Deprivation." The attending frowned. "He's barely conscious." "But he's trained," Emily said. "His breathing is intentional. He's controlling it." The colonel outside shifted his stance, watching closely. Michael exhaled slowly, then spoke again, quieter now. "Same as Kandahar." Emily froze. That wasn't a hallucination. That was a reference. Her mind raced. Kandahar, combat zone, blast injuries, secondary complications. She looked at his chest again. The subtle rigidity, the uneven rise, internal pressure, trapped space. "Doctor," she said urgently, "this could be—" "We are not diagnosing based on battlefield stories," the attending cut in. "Prep the tube." The resident reached for the equipment. Emily watched Michael's eyes widen, not in panic, but urgency. He forced out one last sentence, meant only for her. "Chest won't expand." The monitor beeped faster. To everyone else, it was just another failing trauma patient. To Emily, it was a message written in a language only 2 people in the room understood. And if she didn't act soon, his next breath might be his last. Confidence returned to the room like a bad habit. The attending adjusted his gloves, calm now, almost relaxed. "All right, let's move. He's hypoxic and tiring out." A resident chuckled softly. "Seal or not, everyone needs a tube eventually." Another added, "Guess even elite training can't beat physiology." Emily stood near the monitor, jaw tight. Michael Hayes lay still, eyes half open, breath shallow but controlled. His chest rose, unevenly, not collapsing, not flailing, restricted. Emily noticed something else, subtle, easy to miss. His neck veins weren't flat, they were tight, pressurized. No blood, no chaos, just quiet danger. She stepped forward. "Doctor, his jugular veins are distended." The attending waved her off. "He's stressed." "That doesn't explain the asymmetry in chest expansion," Emily said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "And his trachea is slightly—" "Enough," the attending snapped. "We are not playing guessing games." The resident positioned the laryngoscope. Oxygen's dropping fast. Emily felt a cold weight settle in her chest. This wasn't respiratory failure. This was pressure building where it shouldn't. A silent killer. The kind that doesn't scream until it's too late. Michael's fingers twitched again. He looked at Emily, eyes sharp despite the mask. "Don't," he whispered. The word barely carried across the bed. The attending scoffed. "He's confused." Emily shook her head. "He's not confused. He's compensating. If we intubate, we'll increase intrathoracic pressure and you'll stop talking." The attending cut in, voice hard. "You're a nurse. Stay in your lane." The room went still. Emily felt every pair of eyes on her. The colonel outside leaned forward, tension visible even through glass. The resident hesitated, tube in hand. "Doctor, should we—" "Yes," the attending said sharply. "Proceed." The monitor beeped faster. Oxygen saturation dipped another point. Emily's hands clenched. She knew what would happen next. Intubation would push air into a space already under pressure. The trapped force would compress the heart. Blood flow would drop. Collapse would be sudden. And everyone would be shocked except her. She spoke one last time, voice quiet but urgent. "Please, give me 30 seconds." The attending turned, eyes cold. "Step away from the bed." Emily obeyed. But as she stepped back, Michael's breathing hitched, and the monitor let out a long warning tone. The mistake was already in motion. And Emily could feel it. That awful moment when you know the truth, and no one will listen. Time stopped being abstract. It became numbers on a screen, shrinking by the second. "Heart rate rising," a resident said. "Blood pressure's dropping," another added. The attending didn't look worried. "He's decompensating. Proceed." Emily stood frozen at the foot of the bed, every instinct screaming. Michael Hayes's chest barely moved now. His breaths were shorter, sharper, no longer controlled, no longer tactical. His eyes found hers again, and this time there was no warning in them. There was trust. The monitor let out a sharp, uneven alarm. "Start the tube," the attending ordered. The resident hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Emily saw it, the moment where doubt flickered. She stepped forward. "Doctor, if I'm wrong, I'll take full responsibility. But if I'm right, we have seconds." The attending turned on her. "You don't get to gamble with a commander's life." Emily met his stare. "I'm not gambling. I'm preventing a collapse." "Stand down," he said coldly. The colonel outside raised a hand against the glass. "What's happening in there?" No one answered him. Michael gasped, not for air, against pressure. The monitor dipped again. "BP's crashing," the resident said. Emily's mind raced. Protocol said obey. Training said wait. Her badge said she had no authority. Here. But everything she knew, everything she had lived, said the next step would kill him. She thought of the words Michael had whispered. Pressure, not air. Same as Kandahar. Emily made her choice. She moved to the side of the bed. "Emily, don't," a nurse whispered. The attending's voice rose. "If you touch that patient—" "I need 30 seconds, Emily said, already reaching for gloves. "If I'm wrong, fire me." The room erupted. "Security! Get her away." "Emily!" But the alarms drowned them out. Michael's heart rhythm faltered. Emily didn't look at the doctors. She looked at the patient. And for the first time since the doors slammed open, she stopped asking permission. Emily moved with terrifying calm. She positioned herself at Michael's side, eyes locked on the rise and fall of his chest. Her hands didn't shake. They hadn't shaken in years, not when lives were on the line. "Emily, step away now," the attending barked. She didn't answer. She grabbed a needle from the tray, standard equipment, suddenly dangerous in the wrong hands. A resident gasped. "What is she doing?" Emily spoke clearly, loudly for the first time. "Suspected tension pneumothorax, trapped air. Pressure collapse imminent." "That's not confirmed," the attending shouted. Michael's heart rate spiked, then dipped hard. "Confirm it later," Emily replied, "or pronounce him now." She found the landmark she was looking for, precise, controlled. The room held its breath. The colonel outside pressed both hands to the glass. Emily inserted the needle. There was no blood, no chaos. Just a sharp release, a sudden hiss of escaping pressure. The monitor steadied. "Heart rate stabilizing," a resident said, stunned. "Oxygen's rising," another whispered. Michael's chest expanded, fully this time, freely. He sucked in a deep breath and exhaled, long and steady, like a man surfacing after being held underwater. The room was silent. The attending stared at the monitor, then at Emily. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Michael turned his head toward Emily, eyes clear now. "You saw it," he said hoarsely. "They didn't." Emily nodded, finally letting herself breathe. Security never arrived. No one called them, because no one could argue with the numbers now glowing calmly on the screen. The attending stepped back, voice low. "Get surgery on standby." Emily removed her gloves slowly. She had broken protocol. She had defied orders. She had risked everything. And in doing so, she had saved a Navy SEAL commander's life. The doctors didn't look at her the same way anymore. They looked at her like something far more dangerous. Someone who was right. The room stayed quiet longer than it needed to. Machines hummed, numbers stabilized. The chaos that had ruled minutes ago faded into an uneasy calm. Michael Hayes blinked slowly, once, twice. Then his eyes opened fully. "Commander's awake," a resident said, disbelief creeping into his voice. Emily stepped closer. "Michael, you're in the hospital. You're stable. Can you hear me clearly?" He nodded, then winced slightly. "Like I just surfaced from deep water." The attending cleared his throat. "You experienced acute respiratory distress. We corrected it." Michael turned his head, eyes sharp now, scanning the room. "No, you relieved pressure." The attending stiffened. "Excuse me?" Michael's gaze settled on Emily. "You knew it wasn't air." Emily held his eyes. "You were compensating. Your breathing was controlled because it had to be." He gave the faintest smile. Same pattern as Kandahar. I tried to tell them. The room shifted. A resident looked at the attending. He's lucid, Michael continued, voice stronger with every word. If you'd intubated me, the pressure would have crushed my heart. Silence. Emily didn't speak. She didn't need to. The attending crossed his arms. That outcome isn't guaranteed. Michael's eyes hardened. In my line of work, not guaranteed gets people killed. The colonel stepped into the room now, authority filling the space. Commander Hayes, are you? Saying the nurse prevented a fatal error. Michael didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. A murmur rippled through the team. The attending straightened. We followed standard trauma protocol. And protocol would have killed me, Michael replied calmly. She didn't. Emily felt the weight of the moment settle on her chest. Not relief, not triumph, just truth. The resident who had hesitated earlier spoke quietly. She warned us. The attending shot him a look. Michael shifted slightly, grimacing, then fixed his eyes on Emily again. You saw the signs. Neck pressure, chest restriction. Emily nodded once. You were trying to tell me. He exhaled. Because I knew you'd understand. That landed harder than applause ever could. The attending looked away, jaw tight. We'll debrief this later. Michael's voice cut through, steady and controlled. No, you'll learn from it. The room went still. Emily stood silently at his side, heart pounding. The doctors were stunned, defensive, careful now. Because for the first time since she walked into that trauma bay, the truth was no longer coming from the top of the hierarchy. It was coming from the patient. And he was very much alive. Emily didn't answer right away. The room faded, not literally, but emotionally, as the weight of Michael's words settled on her. Because I knew you'd understand. The attending busied himself with charts. Residents avoided her eyes. No one asked the obvious question. So Michael did. You've seen this before, he said quietly. Not in a hospital. Emily's jaw tightened. She nodded once. I wasn't always here, she began, voice steady but distant. I was a trauma nurse overseas. Civilian contract, forward operating base. The room stilled. No medals, she continued. No ceremonies, just tents, dust, and people arriving faster than we could save them. Her eyes dropped to Michael's chest, rising normally now. There was a medic, she said. Young, smart, calm under fire. He came in after a blast. Talking, joking even. A resident swallowed hard. Doctors said the same things they said tonight, Emily went on. Shock, oxygen, intubate. She paused. I saw what they didn't. Tight neck, uneven chest. That same controlled breathing. Someone trying not to make it worse. Her voice faltered for the first time. I spoke up, louder than I should have. The room leaned in. They told me I was wrong, Emily said. Told me to wait. Michael already knew the rest. They intubated him, she finished. The pressure crushed his heart in less than a minute. Silence pressed in. I held his hand while the monitor went flat, Emily said softly. And all I could think was, I saw it. She looked up now, eyes wet but unbroken. So when you came in tonight, breathing like that, I knew. I knew the sound. I knew the stillness. Michael nodded slowly. That stillness saves time. It costs lives too, Emily replied. If no one listens. The attending finally spoke, voice low. Why didn't you say this earlier? Emily met his gaze. Because experience doesn't count when it doesn't come with rank. No one argued. Michael shifted, wincing slightly. You didn't freeze this time. Emily shook her head. I promised myself I never would again. The monitor beeped steadily between them. Emily hadn't saved Michael Hayes because she was brave. She saved him because she remembered what it felt like to be right and powerless. And she refused to relive that loss. Not tonight. The shift in the room was subtle, but complete. Orders changed, not rushed this time. Precise. Careful. Chest tube confirmed, a resident said. Pressure normalized, another added. The monitor told the story no one wanted to say out loud. Heart rate steady, oxygen climbing, blood pressure holding firm. Michael Hayes breathed normally now. No strain, no calculation. The attending stared at the screen longer than necessary. "We'll adjust the treatment plan," he said finally. "No intubation. Surgical consult only." Emily watched silently as the team moved, not around her, but with her now. A resident approached, voice quiet. "You were right." Emily nodded once, no victory in her eyes. The colonel exhaled slowly, the tension draining from his shoulders. "How close was it?" The attending didn't answer. Michael did. 30 seconds, he said, maybe less. That landed hard. One of the residents swallowed. "If we'd pushed air," Michael finished the thought calmly, "you'd have collapsed my heart." Silence followed. Not awkward. Heavy. The attending removed his gloves, hands suddenly less steady. "We follow protocols for a reason," Emily finally spoke. "Protocols save lives, until they don't." The attending met her eyes. For the first time there was no dismissal there, just realization. "I almost killed him," he said quietly. No one corrected him. A nurse adjusted the IV, hands careful now. "Vitals are stable." Michael closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. "You gave me room to breathe." Emily offered a small nod. "You did the rest." The attending cleared his throat. "We'll document this thoroughly." Emily knew what that meant. Reviews, meetings, consequences. But none of that mattered right now, because the room had crossed a line. They had gone from certainty to humility in less than an hour. The attending looked around at his team. "We got lucky." Emily shook her head gently. "Luck didn't walk into this room." Michael's gaze followed hers. Understanding settled in. Relief came first, pure, physical, undeniable. Then shame crept in, quieter but sharper, because everyone in that trauma bay knew the truth now. They hadn't just saved a life. They had come terrifyingly close to ending one, and the only reason they hadn't was the nurse they almost ignored. The room was calm now, too calm. Machines hummed at a steady rhythm, no alarms, no urgency, just the quiet aftermath of something narrowly avoided. Michael Hayes shifted against the bed. "Sir, don't move yet," a nurse said quickly. "I need to," he replied. Emily stepped forward. "Michael, you're still recovering. Give it a minute." He looked at her, not defiant, not reckless, resolved. "I won't stand," he said, "but I will sit." The attending hesitated, then nodded. Carefully, with effort, Michael pushed himself upright. His face tightened briefly with pain, but he didn't stop. When he was seated, he adjusted the sheet, straightened his shoulders. The colonel outside the room stiffened instantly. The residents froze. No one spoke. Michael drew in a slow, full breath, free, unrestrained, and then lifted his hand. Emily thought he was reaching for balance. She was wrong. Michael raised his right hand sharply to his brow. A perfect salute. Not toward the doctors, not toward the colonel, toward Emily Hart. The sound of the gesture, the quiet snap of fingers meeting forehead, cut through the room. Like thunder, Emily didn't move. Her heart pounded, but her body stayed still, trained by years of holding herself together when everything inside wanted to break. The attending stared. A resident's mouth fell open. The colonel stepped forward, eyes fixed on the nurse. Slowly, deliberately, he returned the salute, this time to Emily. Michael's voice was steady, clear. "You didn't outrank them." He lowered his hand. "You out-earned them." The room remained silent. No applause, no words, just the weight of respect settling where doubt had lived minutes earlier. Emily swallowed. "I was just doing my job." Michael shook his head. "No, you did more than that." The attending looked away, shame written across his face. Emily felt something shift inside her, not pride, not victory. Closure. She returned the salute, Not crisply, not formally, but with quiet acknowledgement. In that moment, titles didn't matter. Ranks didn't matter. Only the truth did. And the truth was simple. A Navy SEAL commander had chosen who deserved his respect. And he had chosen the nurse everyone laughed at. The salute changed everything. Not loudly, not immediately, but permanently. Rounds resumed, but the rhythm was different now. Quieter. Measured. The attending spoke first, choosing his words carefully. "We'll revise the care plan. Emily." He paused, corrected himself. "Nurse Hart, stay on this case." It wasn't an order. It was acknowledgement. Residents who had laughed earlier now waited before speaking, eyes flicking toward Emily, as if checking for something they'd missed. One of them cleared his throat. "We should consult thoracic surgery." Emily nodded. "Already called." No one questioned it. Outside the room, the colonel spoke with hospital administration. His voice wasn't raised, but it didn't need to be. "We entrust our people to this facility," he said. "Tonight showed us who understands that responsibility." The implication hung heavy. Back inside, the attending approached Emily quietly. "You put me in a difficult position." Emily met his gaze evenly. "You put the patient in one." He exhaled. "I let my certainty get in the way." That was as close to an apology as ego would allow. Michael watched the exchange, saying nothing. Military training had taught him to read rooms. He saw it clearly now, the shift of gravity. Respect wasn't automatic here anymore. It was earned. A junior doctor spoke up, tentative. "We should document Nurse Hart's intervention accurately." The attending nodded. "We will." Emily understood the weight of that promise. Documentation meant accountability, and accountability meant the old hierarchy wouldn't survive untouched. Later, as the team prepared to move Michael to ICU, the attending stopped beside Emily. "You took a risk," he said. Emily replied calmly. "So did you. The difference is, I knew the cost." He had no answer for that. The colonel stepped back into the room. "Commander Hayes will be transferred under my authority." Then he turned to Emily. "If you ever decide to leave this hospital, there are places that would value your judgment." Emily inclined her head slightly. "I serve patients, not institutions." Michael smiled faintly at that. As he was wheeled out, the doctors stepped aside, literally making space. Not because they were told to, because they understood now. The fallout wasn't punishment. It was something far more unsettling. A shift in power, where confidence without humility lost its shield, and where one nurse had quietly redrawn the line between ego and responsibility. The ICU was quiet in a way trauma bays never were. Lights dimmed. Machines whispered instead of screamed. The chaos had been replaced by watchful stillness. Emily stood at the foot of the bed, checking the chart one last time before leaving. "Emily," Michael said. "Not nurse, not Hart. Just her name." She looked up. "You should rest." "I will," he replied. "After this." She hesitated, then stepped closer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You don't salute unless it matters," Emily said finally. Michael's eyes stayed on the ceiling. "In my world, salutes are expensive." That earned a quiet breath of understanding from her. "You didn't owe me one," she said. "Yes," he replied, "I did." She studied him now, not the commander, not the legend, just a man who had come very close to dying. "You trusted me," she said. "I trusted your eyes," Michael answered. They didn't flinch. Emily looked away briefly. "Sometimes that's not courage. Sometimes it's memory." Michael nodded. "The ones you couldn't save." She didn't correct him. "You broke rules tonight," he said. Emily met his gaze again. "So did you." A faint smile touched his lips. "Difference is, I get medals for it." She almost smiled back, but the moment was too heavy. "Where I work," Emily said, "you get blamed first." Michael shifted slightly, wincing. "Then hear this clearly. If anyone asks what happened tonight, it was your call that saved me." "That will cost you," she said. "It already has," he replied. "Every life I carry." Silence settled again. "Why medicine?" Michael asked. Emily took a breath. "Because when things fall apart, someone has to stay." Michael absorbed that. "In my world," he said quietly, "we train for years to do the same thing." Their eyes held. Two different uniforms. Same scars. "You won't be forgotten here," Michael said. Emily shook her head gently. "That's not why I did it." "I know," he replied. "That's why it matters." A nurse passed outside the glass, unaware of the weight inside the room. Emily stepped back. "Rest, Commander," Michael corrected her softly. "Michael." She nodded once. "Get some sleep." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Emily?" "Yes." "You stood your ground." She paused. "So did you." Anna didn't need more words. They both understood the cost and the respect. Emily Hart walked out of the ICU the same way she had walked in. No escort, no ceremony. No one stopping her to say her name out loud. The hospital returned to its rhythm, carts rolling, monitors humming, voices lowered behind. Curtains. To most people it was just another night that didn't make the news. But something fundamental had shifted. In one trauma bay, certainty had nearly killed a man, and quiet observation had saved him. Emily paused at the sink, washing her hands. The water ran clear, steady, reliable. She watched it the way she watched patients, without rushing, without assumptions. Down the hall, a group of doctors spoke more carefully than they had before, not softer, more deliberately, as if they had learned that volume was not the same thing as truth. In the ICU, Commander Michael Hayes slept under controlled light, his breathing even now, no longer tactical, no longer forced, alive because someone listened to what wasn't being said. Emily checked her watch. Another shift was waiting. Another patient would arrive with a story hidden between the numbers. Another moment where protocol would demand speed and judgment would demand restraint. She didn't know what would happen to the doctors who laughed. She didn't know what would be written in the report. She didn't know if her choice would cost her later. What she did know was this: silence is not ignorance. Calm is not weakness. And rank does not equal insight. The most dangerous mistakes aren't made by people who don't care. They're made by people who stop listening. Emily stepped back onto the floor, shoulders squared, eyes forward. Because somewhere in that hospital, right now, a monitor was about to change its tone. A patient was about to say something easy to dismiss, and a decision would need to be made before anyone else realized it mattered. This time, she would be ready. And next time, the stakes would be even higher. Because the next case wouldn't involve a battlefield injury. It would involve a patient no one expected to fight back. And a truth hidden in plain sight. Never confuse silence with weakness. If you want to hear the story of the case that followed, the one that tested Emily Hart in ways medicine never prepared her for, then stay with us. The quiet ones always have more to say. If this story moved you, if you believe that real strength is often quiet and courage doesn't always wear rank or medals, then stay with us. Subscribe now for true-to-life nurse stories, military sacrifice, and moments where one decision changes everything. Because the stories that matter most are the ones almost no one listens to. And here we listen. If this story moved you, if you believe that real strength is often quiet, and courage doesn't always wear rank or medals, then stay with us. Subscribe now for true-to-life nurse stories, military sacrifice, and moments where one decision changes everything. Because the stories that matter most are the ones almost no one listens to. And here, we listen.